Welcome to the Great Loop Radio podcast, brought to you by America's Great Loop Cruisers Association. We're dedicated to sharing Great Loop information and inspiration with those actively cruising, planning for, or dreaming about a Great Loop adventure. I'm Kim Russo. I'm the director of AGLCA. Today we are going to do another one of our Story of Our Loop series, and it's going to be featuring the Boomershine family. Mark and Cinda will be with us. Many of you probably know them from their very popular YouTube channel, so we'll bring them into the conversation in just a moment. First, I do want to take a moment to recognize and thank our Admiral sponsors who support AGLCA at the highest level. They are Kathy All. She is a certified financial planner with Edward Jones. Great Loop Yacht Sales, Passage Maker Trawler Fest, Skipper Bob Publications, Waterway Guide Media. As always, we encourage our listeners and viewers to support these businesses that support the Great Loop. And with our sponsors appropriately recognized, I want to kind of officially welcome Mark and Cinda Boomershine to the podcast. Hi, guys. Welcome.
Hi, Kim.
Well,
Thank you so much for being here. It's great to see your faces again.
I know we've missed you.
We've missed you too. Yeah, thank you for being here. Let's, start kind of some of us may have not seen your YouTube channel. So let's kind of start at the beginning. Tell us about your family and what it was that attracted you to take on the Great Loop.
Well, we are a family of four.
Let's take this.
Mom, Dad, Cinda, Mark. We have Belle and Rex, who at the time of looping were 8 and 10.
8 and 10, yeah.
They're
now.
They're now 11 and 13. But
Wow.
We originally, I was inspired by actually non-loopers, but there was a YouTube channel, a family of 3. Mom and Dad took a daughter on a Nordhaven yacht and traveled the world. And I was like, what a cool way for a child to grow up. A little bit later, we found
kids.
Pre-kids.
Years before kids.
Kids. 06. Then when we started thinking about kids, and we heard about the loop, it was a little less dangerous going, like around the world. But then we saw the loop route, and
it was a way for you to have the boating adventure with the kids, but without the, as we say, it's relatively safe.
Yes.
High adventure, low risk.
High adventure, low risk, usually in sight of land most of the time.
Yeah.
So,
Still stressful at times, but not nearly as stressful for me as some of the, major open water crossings would have been.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So you started documenting your journey, so to speak, kind of before the actual journeying began. You started back when you were still boat shopping. So, tell me about that. What made you decide to start the YouTube channel, partly as the whole process, from the planning on through to the actual journey?
Well, I mean, we had the YouTube channel before we ever started boat shopping. So we were kind of fiddling, if you will, and putting up. We've done all these cross-country road trips with the kids, and it was more of a way to share the adventure with our family and friends. So we'd put it there, and it was, entertaining for us, but hopefully maybe somebody else. And then, we documented our first couple trips to go look at boats and get on boats, and then it kind of took off from there with our virtual boat shopping episodes.
Yes.
Yeah, they took off as we kind of said, there's a lot to this boat shopping stuff. And if we can impart some wisdom maybe that we're learning along the way, then it certainly would have helped us.
For sure.
So if we can put it out there and help some other people, then that could be cool. And we started enjoying it. I've always edited. I remember 6th grade, I had 2 VCRs, and I've been editing. And then now that it's so easy, on a laptop, I just enjoy it. So that was also a good outlet for that for me.
And it helped us to strategically look at boats together also. And I'd look at completely different things than he was looking for. So it provided a nice round perspective on the boats we were looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us what boat you eventually chose and what made it perfect for your family for the Great Loop.
We chose our sweet SeaShine, the unicorn of the boat. 2 years of looking. She was an Ocean Alexander,
Still
an older
Ocean
one.
Alexander.
She is. She's still around. It's not like she's not with us anymore. With different owners, but she was a 1987.
86, 87.
86,
But it had completely been rebuilt.
Yeah, Ocean Alexander,
Refit.
56 foot. She was technically their long range cruiser. But what was unique about her, in the 56 feet, she had an 18-foot beam and a four stateroom all en suite layout. So for our family needs,
Oh, there was nothing else
it
like it
was great.
on the market at the time that we'd
Yeah.
looked at. So, and she had gotten a complete refit, new engines, and everything in '08. So she was kind of like we say, a unicorn.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ton of living space. I mean, it was just, it literally, she said, by the way, there wasn't much convincing on my part to do the loop because she just enjoys it too. So it was kind of like, let's think about it. And it was, yeah, let's do it. But she did say, when we get the boat, I'm not camping. Like, this is not going to
It
be
was going to be
roughing it.
with the kids. I wanted
Yeah.
a washer and dryer. I wanted a dishwasher. I wanted just stuff to make it more comfortable for me. And not everybody needs that, but apparently I requested it and we figured out how to make it work. And I wanted room for the kids to be able to play on the floor and like weird things that most people don't think of. But when you've got little kids, they need room for that. We needed room for toys. We needed, the ability to have family dinners with all four of us at the same table. Just weird, more family focused things.
Yeah, things that are hard to find in the size boat that is still capable of clearing bridges on the Great Loop.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I know you mentioned SeaShine had a complete mechanical refit essentially in '08, but you did a lot to really make her your own. And I think this is where you kind of come in, Cinda, that you were saying you didn't want to be camping. Besides the features like the dishwasher or the washer dryer, you did a lot to really kind of, as I said, make it your own. I had the opportunity to tour SeaShine while you were on your loop, and it just gorgeous. So tell us a little bit about what you did to make it feel like home for you and the kids.
Yeah, so we did an ambush makeover. Like we had 2 weeks before we started the loop when we moved on to when we started. And I have a background in design. I have done makeovers on TV that had to be done, quickly for production value. But I said, okay, if we're going to make this home, what are some things we can quickly change within 2 weeks? So we put in new carpet, which lightened it up. We put in new countertops. We put in new faucets, new hardware, all new linens, so I had my monogrammed linens, little things, but it made it feel like home. So, it was, that whole process was hilarious because, just installing anything on a boat is exponentially more difficult than doing it on a stationary.
Well, you can talk to any vendor and, oh, we want new countertops. And you get along the way, and then you said, by the way, this is on the boat. And they're, no, we're not going to do that.
It is a different animal for sure.
For good reason. Our countertops, we mismeasured. Something went wrong. They had to take it back to the shop, which was only like 2 miles away. But, they have to go down.
Well, they have to get it off the boat. They have to get it down and then
the
of
docks
course
and
the
dollies.
marina was redoing the walkway from the parking lot to the actual boats while we were installing all this stuff. So they had to go on a tiki barge. It was a whole rigmarole, but we got it done. And then it updated the boat and made it feel fresh and new, and we liked it.
Yeah, and I think it's important. We knew the boat was a sense of home, because unlike most loopers that'll, a couple that know they're just going to be on this boat for a short period of time, with the two kids, it needed to be a floating home. And I think that's what we also loved about the loop was, you're in the same bed every night. It's literally your house moves with you along this amazing route. So we really wanted to create that sense of home for the kids because that gave them comfort and, just a great memory for them. So that was one of the great things about the layout and also doing the renovations that made it ours.
Yeah.
So we talked about briefly the bridge clearances, having a boat that is big enough for a family of four and can still get under the lowest fixed bridge. So technically, the air draft for SeaShine was higher than the charted height of that bridge on the Illinois waterway. So I know you were sweating it out a little bit there as you were getting closer to that. How did that what was the actual air draft and how did that work out?
We have, that's what anybody says. Our air draft is this exact. It's kind of like, really, do you really know? But
point on our hardtop is at the center, so it's really difficult to get a straight line down. And our depth changed as saltwater, freshwater, and everything we had on board. So we sat so much higher in saltwater than we did in freshwater. Thank goodness. We never would have cleared if it was freshwater. I mean, saltwater. But yeah, we still don't know exactly. We know that we made it through with this much. And
We were over 19'6". We know that.
Yeah.
Somewhere under 20.
Yeah.
And I called the lockmasters the day before and told them we were coming and told them we were concerned and if there's anything they could possibly do. I have no clue if they did anything, but they were very kind on the phone. All the lockmasters the whole loop were incredible, but
Yeah.
they knew, everybody was aware of our situation. The barges around us were aware, everybody was on high alert.
Well, we were having docktails in Cape May, New Jersey, and a lot of other loopers were looking and going, is she going to clear?
Everyone said that. We said that, but we had done a lot of measurements and it was a calculated risk that we took.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us, when you started and when you finished the loop, and how, if you tracked it, how many of the days did you spend cruising versus, just kind of tied up and exploring shoreside?
I haven't actually tracked that, which would be interesting to track.
That's a pretty good statistic we should find.
May 2nd of 2022. So the kids missed, a month at the end of the school year, which was fine. That was actually easy, not a big deal. And then we ended
in Stewart, technically.
It started and ended in Stewart, but it was in June. We were trying to get home for the 4th of July. So sometime the end of June is when we finished our loop and crossed our wake.
But we did almost 2 months in the Bahamas, so.
Oh yeah, we had a small but fabulous detour.
Yeah. What were the months that you spent in the Bahamas?
April and May.
We left on April 1st, and we came back. Well, we came back end of May, and then we got stuck for a little bit in Old Port Cove. Our batteries died.
Yeah.
Made it out of us.
But so it was on
decided not to work again. Yeah.
Yeah. The back end of your trip is when you did the Bahamas.
Yeah, the back end. So it was kind of the icing on the cake.
Oh, for sure. So tell us a little bit about your cruising preferences. I like to ask all our gold loopers that. And by cruising preferences, I mean, did you prefer marinas over anchorages? How many miles per day was your sweet spot? What was your typical cruising speed? Those kinds of things that are completely in your control and everybody chooses to do differently.
We did mostly all marinas, mainly because the kids, we did the loop for a number of reasons, but one was for the kids to incorporate the history of the Eastern Seaboard and all the places we were stopping. And so we wanted to stop at interesting cities and ports where we could get off, run around, explore. We saw a lot of playgrounds on the loop, but we also hit a ton of museums and, anything we could to enrich their education. So we were primarily 95%.
Yeah, getting off and running around was a big part. Kind of like traveling with Patch. You got to let them out to run around.
Being on anchor is incredible, like in the Bahamas where we could go swimming and kayaking and playing, but like we were on anchor off of Cumberland Island and it was a windstorm and the kids were going stir crazy and it's a little different when you've got
or an offshoot on the river with current,
you can't go anywhere.
You can't go anywhere. You're definitely not going to swim. So 56 feet gets kind of small when you've been cruising all day and the kids want to go run around.
But so was when we were anchoring and we were tied up with other boats also had kids. Now that was ideal anchoring because the kids could play and go from boat to boat, and that was great. But for the most part, we were in marinas, exploring towns, and we didn't really have if we do a road trip, I know we were maxing out this many miles per day, but on the boat, it just depended on where our next stop was. And so sometimes we'd have long days, where we're up at the crack of dawn and we're covering 100+ miles, which was long for us. And then some days it'd be short hops. It just depended on the destination and the weather. Because I was a weather boater.
Yeah. How did you tend to pick those next stops? Whether it was 100 miles or a short hop, what was your selection process to decide where you were going next?
Playgrounds.
No, those were bonuses. I'm a weird, crazy researcher, and depending on where the cities were, the book that I really loved was it the 100 Best Stops on the Loop? Is that the book?
There is one, 100 Great Stops on the Great Loop. I think it is.
Yes, I found.
And of course, Waterway Guide.
Waterway Guides were great. So I was looking at Waterway Guides. I was looking at the 100 Great Stops on the Loop, which was more of a curated. It didn't have every stop. It kind of had the best of, and I found that to be very helpful. And then I was, looking at all my other resources like TripAdvisor and random places where I could, pull pearls, because we we weren't doing the typical loop. You know, we had kids who I was trying to entertain in a different way.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I
I
know a
think
lot
you
of
also,
it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
what was the app that, I'm totally blanking on the app that was used.
oh, Nebo?
Oh,
Nebo.
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 She started to realize that there's this whole resource of loopers ahead of us, right?
And just
That
see where the most loopers are. That was my other.
you could see, you could get in touch with them. Hey, did you like this and that? So that was a great resource. So as well as the static books,
Yeah.
and,
But you could
talking to other loopers was also great.
visually see where everybody was and where other big boats were. That was my other favorite thing, was to see the larger boats ahead of us. You know, where were they stopping? And, you know, that would
Yeah.
usually be a good fit for us.
Right. Well, and I know part of your mission was, that enrichment for the kids. So what was it like transitioning as a family, a pretty standard working parents, kids that go to school, moving that? I remember first meeting you two in Chicago at one of our events, and you were early in the process, and, Mark shared that you're an artist and you were going to need a place to paint on the boat. How did all of that work out? How was that transition to not just being working parents, but now working parents, boat mechanics, boat drivers, teacher? What was all that like for your family?
It was a lot, which is why we are currently editing our videos and didn't edit them on a loop. There's only so much you can do, and I don't think I anticipated, or either one of us anticipated, how much time looping would take. Now, and like, obviously there's the time where you're moving the boat, given, but you want to enjoy that time. You want to be looking, but there's fixing things that are broken, making reservations, watching the weather, planning for, all the different activities. So that was very time consuming.
Yeah, and provisioning and
Everything just takes longer than you anticipated. And I do think that our kids were in very labor intensive grades, like fourth and fifth. So there's a number of loopers who homeschool beforehand, and so this was their world. It was just on a boat. This was not my world to be homeschooling. And third and fourth grade still needed a lot of hand holding and mom's help. And even though we put them in a great program, it was a lot of teaching time for me. I think the parents with older kids had a much easier time because their kids already knew how to log on, and they already knew how to do, all the technical side of things that our kids were still learning. And they could FaceTime with their friends and be entertained, whereas our kids were too little to really spend a lot of time on computers and devices with their friends, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And I loopers without kids aboard find themselves much busier than they expected to be. So add the kids into the mix, and I'm sure it's particularly if you weren't homeschooling. Kim? Yeah. So.
Well, and you asked about my art. That was we had a spare bedroom on the boat, which was, she had a center.
She being SeaShine.
SeaShine had a guest bedroom, stateroom that had a walk around queen, and I could use that as kind of a artist studio or a place to get away and work. So I actually completed a fairly good sized painting inside the boat in that room.
Well, you also did some on docks. I mean, Mike was like outside painting at different places. He didn't.
I was on the sidewalk in New Jersey, painting, and people were walking by like I was a street artist, but you just made it happen.
Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly it. You make it happen, whatever that requires.
Yeah.
It's one of, I guess, one of the prices you pay for being able to do the loop while still having, everybody's got other things going on in their lives, but while still working and while still having children. We find those, there's a give and take there. We never had young children aboard with us, but working, even just that without trying to be teacher to the kids is a lot. So kudos to you both for making that work.
You asked about transitioning. I don't know that I think you transition off the boat maybe, but I think you just jump in, right?
You rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, before you know it, we're going. Like,
right.
Because if you transition, you're like, we should go tomorrow. Well, we still need. You're like still at the dock, and you're like, when are we going to leave? So eventually, you just have to throw the lines, and go. So I think the transitioning is more like, how do you get transition back to dirt life versus getting on the boat is just go.
Well, that's a good point. And how did that transition then back to dirt life go for you?
It was well, we had our house in Atlanta rented. And so we have a lake house. So we transition to a house with water, and we're still
So that
boating a good bit. So it was a good in between.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then because we ended in June, so we had or July, so we
we
had
moved back
July and
from the
August.
boat, moving out and getting settled and selling the boat. So it was a process. And then we had some family stuff happen. My dad had a stroke, which I highly do not recommend, and his dad passed away. We did the loop at the perfect time, but our reentry was rough because we had all these family things happen
So
that
we had
beyond
a
our
soft
control.
re-entry and a lot of distractions that made us not really. You
But
just
the
had to do.
kids had great reentries, and that was one of my main concerns. Was the loop was our dream, not necessarily their dream. I mean, we told them about their whole life because we dreamed about it before they were even around, but we didn't want them to suffer academically or socially or really anything because we had pulled them out of their lives for a year. That was my biggest concern probably. And I say that they re-entered and were thriving. They were ahead of their friends in terms of things that they had learned in boat school and just living on a boat and their independence and resilience. And,
We still
lots of
get
great things to say about that.
so many comments from teachers, parents about maturity level of our kids, and I think that we could directly attribute that to the loop, being on a boat, problem solving. There is no other option. You can't panic. You can't collapse in a heap of I don't know what to do. You just have to do it. And I think they saw us doing that, and they had to be part of it because they were active loopers with us. Our son held the aft, on the boat, 42-ton SeaShine. He was holding the line in the locks, and our daughter Belle was on the bow, and she would run in between. So they were literally holding the boat, and I
Yeah.
think that gave them a sense of empowerment that they now carry
You
forward.
can't panic.
Yep.
Whatever you do, you can't.
Yeah, no,
So I
and
think
I
it's
love the
great
way
as far as their development.
I love the way you explain that because I see that in so many looper kids. They have this ability to adapt to so many different situations and completely comfortable meeting new people because they did it all the
Yes.
time.
Well, that's a huge
Well,
point.
and they're confident with adults. So our kids went
Yes.
back to their old schools, but then they had to apply out to the next school, which is difficult to get into. And no problems with interviews with with adults. They can
Right.
converse because they had to.
Right.
With old folks.
In general, there were 4 other boats with kids. Is it 4? When we did the loop. And so and we didn't meet them until we were already, we had made it from Stewart, Florida, all the way through Canada to St. Louis before we met another boat kid. And that's a long time where it was just them and our amazing, buddy boats. But it was way more fun for them when we met the other boat kids. And the other boat kids, totally different ages. And our kids were the youngest, but that was incredible once we connected with some other boats.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a quick break and play a message from some of our sponsors. When we come back, I want to kind of dive into, some of your favorite moments, or perhaps most memorable moments, and also kind of what your family gained from this. So we'll be back in a moment. Ahoy, great loopers and maritime enthusiasts. For smooth adventures and peace of mind, let Pilot House Insurance come aboard to help navigate your insurance needs. As an independent broker, we offer comprehensive protection for boats, yachts, and maritime businesses through top-rated companies. Our experienced team simplifies insurance by shopping rates and finding the right coverage to fit your needs and budget. And the best part? We do all this without charging agency fees for our service. Plus, potential discounts are available for boaters with U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, Power Squadron, and other qualified training certifications. Ready to protect your journey? Call us at 843-766-1318 or visit mypilothouse.com/boatlife to learn more. Pilot House Insurance. Let's journey together. The Boat Galley will make your boat life better. They offer 8 online courses on topics related to living on a boat, such as how to store everything you'll need, living with a smaller fridge, taking a dog with you, and effective use of your VHF. Their quick reference cruising guides will simplify your life underway, giving quick answers to questions like, where's the next fuel stop? Or how high is that bridge? The Boat Galley Cookbook and its 800 boat-friendly recipes, including 75 Docktail appies and 40 drinks, will make cooking aboard a snap. Get 10% off purchases with code AGLCA. We're back on the Great Loop Radio podcast. My guests today are Mark and Cinda Boomershine. They are sharing the story of their loop with their two amazing kiddos. So talk about the reality of the trip versus your expectations. You both said this was your dream from before you even had kids. So certainly there was some expectations of how this would go, what it would be like. How did that measure up to what the loop really was?
You want me to start?
Sure.
So I will say the loop, I anticipated it to be intense. It was way more intense for me because of my kind of just general anxiety levels than I factored and planned on.
Well, is that the loop or is that just living on a boat?
Living on it. Well, here's the deal. We had lived on boats as a couple without kids for whatever reason.
Not long term, but
not long term, but we'd boated and done things with relatively overnight, similar size boat. I'm a completely different boater when my children are on board. And we boated again with the kids were at camp after the loop, and I was again more relaxed. But I'm really anxious when I have children on board that I want to keep alive. So I didn't anticipate that I would react that strongly. And we were very safety focused. We were not ever going to do the loop until our kids were strong swimmers, because you don't fall in when you're planning to fall in. You fall in when you're not planning to fall in. And I needed our kids to have a fighting chance. So thankfully, no one fell in, which is shocking because we all had money on Rex. But
you lost some items that fell in.
We lost a lot of shoes, single shoes. Lost a lot.
Headset. But
they float, by the way, and they work when they've been in a lock for 30 minutes. They still work.
Impressive.
So that my biggest difference was not anticipating, and that's a mom thing. I don't think anybody ever relate to that like I did, but that was a huge difference between reality and expectation. Everything else we kind of expected.
How about you, Mark?
I would mirror that. I mean, if that's a mom thing, it's definitely a dad thing, because she was in charge of routes and planning and weather. I was in charge of making the boat run and that safety side of it. You know, you sit in bed at night at a marina and you think of all the things that can happen. And it's enough to cause you to want to get off the boat with your kids, but that's not the whole purpose of it. You just keep powering on. But so I think as a dad, I mirrored that as well. But I would also say, you know, we've done some social media, and social media always reflects the best of it. And we know there's a veil of, oh my goodness, look how amazing the loop is and blah, blah, but behind the scenes, it's not at all that. And that's one of the things we try to not do on our YouTube.
The reality of it, it's you are on vacation, you know, on a yacht with a crew for a year. You're working your tail off, and there's a lot to it.
Yeah. So I think I didn't expect it to be a pleasure cruise by any means.
Neither one of us did.
So because just being boaters, we knew what to expect, but it's the intensity of it, the day after day after day versus a long Memorial Day weekend of boating.
And when things break and you're really far away, it's way more stressful than if something breaks and you're like, oh, well, we'll just park it in our slip and we'll fix it next week, you know?
Absolutely.
Different intensity there.
Yeah, for sure. So share with us some of your most memorable moments, good or bad. You can pick. But what are some of the what are some of the memories that your family took away from this adventure?
I think one of the biggest, which started out bad, but ended up great, was we didn't know what we'd done at the time, and I'll just set up the scene. We're in Canada. We're literally as far as we can get from home in Canada, between two locks on the Trent. And Mark and I are both at the helm facing forward, and Rex goes, "What's all that black smoke?" And I look out the back, you know, sliding glass doors, and you can't see anything but black smoke, which is a terrifying sight on the back of your boat. And so I ran down to the engine room as I'm screaming for the kids to put on their life jackets to see if I thought an engine was on fire.
We literally had about 30 minutes left until we were done for the day. I mean, we were almost
for the day.
Yeah.
But it was just the exhaust was just billowing this just horrific looking black smoke. And that was terrifying. So we figured out which engine it was, shut it down, got to a dock. It turns out it was just a fuel injector, but didn't know that at the time. And you're like, oh gosh, we're gonna be stuck in Canada. And long story short, the lockmaster, the locals, everybody teamed in and helped us find a
Hastings,
mechanic.
Ontario
Hastings,
came to the
Ontario
rescue.
has the best people on the planet because they
Mhm.
all helped out. And it like literally we had a mechanic on board like 30 minutes of an hour after we docked because the lockmaster had taken pity on us and called a friend who happened to be at dinner. He had a friend who was at dinner. Anyway, it all just worked out great. And it was a series of beautiful what's the best that can happen events. And yeah, that's probably my most memorable experience that started off terrifying and ended up with just incredible memories.
Yeah. It is nice. And we hear those stories a lot about other boaters, but also locals in all of these small towns
Mm-hmm.
that kind of come to your
Yep.
rescue when you need it most. So I'm glad you shared that, Cinda. How
Yep.
about you, Mark? What's a memorable moment
Um,
for you on the journey?
well, a popular question when you say talk about this trip is where did you like? And
Hmm.
my answer is always, even though it's not part of Loop, but Bahamas is amazing. It's what you expect.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But we were blown away by the Canadian waters,
Oh, so
um,
good.
the beauty and the people. But it's pretty hard to beat in one day when it was going through Bayfin,
Hmm.
Bayfine,
Hmm.
Bayfin. I always say it wrong. But
It's spelled fine, but it's pronounced Finn, I
we
think.
came through there, anchored. We went up, past the um,
Evan Root House,
Evan Rood House.
Hmm.
We hiked up to
Topaz Lake.
Topaz Lake.
I'll just
Topaz Lake.
fill in the blanks.
Fill in the blanks. Swam in that amazing water. Came back, lit a fire on a rock that night, and roasted marshmallows. And that's if you had said that's going to be one of your days on the Loop prior to the Loop, I would have said no way. You're not going to do all that in one day. But
It's
you know
spectacular.
that
Yeah.
was top top
Canada.
5 days of the Loop.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Canada
Yeah.
is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what do you think you as a family gained from taking this year out of your life and doing this adventure?
Oh, I,
Memories,
well,
tons
for
of.
sure memories. I think the greatest thing is we're so close. You don't. I guess I didn't realize how much I was outsourcing the creation of our tiny children into great human beings to other people. When you drop them off at school at 8 in the morning and you pick them up, and then you drop them at soccer practice and you drop them at this and you drop them at that. You're spending time with your children, but not you know as focused
Quality.
at quality
Yeah.
intense. I mean, we're very purposeful in our approach to parenting in general, and we're very present, and or we try to be. But doing the Loop, you're together 24/7 for
Yeah.
better or for worse, but it really gives you the opportunity, as I like to say, to craft great humans. Like you can focus on the things that are important to us and being kind and respectful, and just really work on those things that you don't otherwise have the time to do with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And I
you
kind of
probably
now that again I'm dropping them back off at school and I'm picking them back up, and we're trying to be purposeful in our using our vacation time that they have from school, as well as possible. But
yeah,
I miss it.
lots of opportunities to do those kinds of things when you're spending that much time together. So it
Oh
is a
yeah,
great
24/7
lifestyle.
together.
It's a
And I
great
think
lifestyle for a family for sure.
the impetus for doing it was along those lines when you're in the rhythm of school and life. I started realizing basically Monday through Friday is that you get up, make breakfast, get your coffee, drop them off for school, pick them up. I mean, you start Monday and then Friday comes and it's like, wow, that went
Mm-hmm.
really fast and I can't tell Monday from Thursday. It
Hmm.
was at that point when we were talking about should we do the Loop, it was like definitely, because we only have 9 years. I think at the time we have 9 years left with them or something like that before we have six. And so it's like we have to do this because if you don't, you're going to look back and you're not going to remember any of it. It's just going to be a blur of taking them to school and to here and there. And so taking that 15 months off is not easy to schedule or to figure it out.
It's logistically a challenge, but so worth it.
Yeah, but we did
Yeah.
it. And I think the kids appreciate it. I think they're starting to realize, wow, that was really cool what you did. They don't remember as much as we think they would, and they're surprised at how much they don't remember.
Yeah.
So that's selfishly another reason we do the episodes that we do, is so
On
that they can
YouTube.
live, kind of in perpetuity for them to see. But yeah, I think just the unplugging and really as a family unit of four saying, all right, let's take this time and just really be with each other. I
Yeah.
think it's a rare thing.
I think it is very rare and very exciting that families use something like the loop to do that. So I love that part of your
Yeah.
story. You mentioned the episodes. You mentioned that you didn't edit them while you were underway. There's too much else to do. I completely agree with that. For the people who do
Hats off to
manage to
anybody
keep
that does.
people who manage to keep their YouTube channels up to date while
Yeah.
they're doing it, that's amazing to me.
Yeah.
But so you are still releasing them. Kind of tell us where you are with the videos. How much is still to come? How much have you already released?
We are on episode 86. We just
Well, and we do every leg of the trip as an episode.
Yes.
So we start with the morning of where we're getting off the dock and heading to our next location, and then we pepper in that location. So that's every episode is a leg.
If the boat moves, it's that leaving the dock and then whatever happens that evening or evenings.
Right.
And the next day the boat moves is the next episode. So we just cleared
the bridge.
So if anybody wants to start at episode 85, that is our clearance.
That was a very stressful day.
But we go all the way back to, how did we move out of the house? How did we renovate the boat?
Well, yeah, we had a whole series of boat shopping, which we called the majority of it was virtual. We were looking at listings online, so those were the VBS episodes, virtual boat shopping, and then we started with the beginning of our loop as the vlog. So they're all numbered for that, and we post every Friday as best as we can. Occasionally, life gets in the way, but every Friday at 5.
So we're halfway through.
Yeah. So we've got all the rest of the river, or the majority of the river systems, and Florida, and the Keys, and the Bahamas.
Good stuff still to come.
Lots of still to come.
For people who have not come across your videos yet, what's the best way for them to find you?
It's the Boomershines on YouTube. So our name, which I'm sure will be somewhere here, but
it'll be in there.
And we also occasionally do loop scoop episodes, which I think people like, which is just kind of, tips and tricks on what we figured out for doing the loop. So just our perspective on things.
Excellent. I think this has been really insightful and super motivational for maybe people who are considering doing this with the kiddos aboard. So
do it.
My only pearl is, we all, now that we have had a couple of years since the loop, we all wish the kids were older. The kids wish they were a little older.
Yeah.
So that's just, it's doable. I think it's probably doable at any age. I think, and if you have a window to do it, you should do it. But the older, probably the better and more enjoyable for everybody.
It's a balance though, right? Because I'm sure now that they're 3 years older, they're so much more active in things, even though they're probably had the soccer and the dance class and everything else before. I don't know. Once they start to get into those teenage years, I think they're
it's a great point.
To their friends. It's really hard to find that space.
It's hard. I don't think there's the perfect, I don't know. And now I will say sports are a big thing. Like that was the only thing that we really sacrificed by doing the loop is Rex had to tap out of baseball. That was
developmentally at that age, they go from, being peewee to, wow, these kids are actually pretty good. And Rex missed and Bell too on some things. It's just, there's a lot of that developmentally happens in those ages, sports wise.
He caught up, but that was baseball. He just decided he didn't want to try to catch up, but everything else they caught up on. But that is, it's something to consider. It's an opportunity cost.
It's kind of like everything with looping. There's trade-offs. And you want them to remember it as much of it as they can. But I think, and we have had some teenagers in recent years who did it and had a fabulous time. Every child, every boat, every looper, every loop is different. But I'm so glad that your family had a wonderful experience, made those memories, had that time to connect. And thank you for sharing the story. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. And it's always great to see you.
You too. It's great to catch up with you. So thank you for being here. And thanks to everyone who's watched or listened to this week. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Great Loop Radio podcast. Until then, safe cruising.